Prophecy Decoded. Decoded the past, reveal the future.
They told us kings were above desire, but the records whisper a darker truth. Power crowns a man, yet hunger unseats him. A single night, a single glance, a single order, this changed everything. Which king's secret nearly shattered a dynasty? Stay with this, because what comes next holds an exclusive promiser. The stones and the scrolls will speak, and the silence ends. The name is David, the shepherd boy who sang to calm storms and stood his ground against giants. The warrior who stitched fractured tribes into a single banner and carved a capital out of rugged hills. His harp could pull a room into stillness. His sword made enemies think twice. He was a poet, a soul, a ruler, and a symbol. He was chosen, anointed, lifted beyond the dust, and yet he was still a man. That is the paradox that haunts this story. The city is Jerusalem, the air thin with incense and iron, the streets humming with trade and rumor. Rise. Terraces step down the ridge, and at the top, the palace steals the wind. The city is a heartbeat, and all its rhythm beats for him. Until one night, when the king who could command armies could not command his eyes. Look at the rooftop. The water breaks into concentric rings as a hand dips, lifts, and pours again. The moon makes a mirror and a mask. Privacy is fragile in a city of flat roofs. Every height carries a view, and view is power. He was not hunting for sin, or so he would tell himself. He was restless. He was human. He looked, and then he did not look away. The woman's name is Bathsheba, a silhouette at first, then a face. A wife already bound by covenant, rooted in a household that had earned its honor in the grit of battle. Her beauty did not cause the sin. It revealed the weakness. This is the hing where admiration turns to acquisition, where sight hardens into taking. The verbs in this story are blunt. They do not blush. They do not ask permission. And that bluntness leaves a mark. Here's what they never mention when the tale gets cheap. A king's summons is not a polite request. The palace is a gravity well. When it calls, everything falls toward it. Even in a world where law and custom weave 1,000 lines around a woman's life, none was strong enough to hold against the weight of royal desire. Agency shrinks when power fills the room. The question of consent does not compute cleanly in a court where obedience is the air everyone breathes. The blame, however, is not a fog. It has an address. He is the one with the crown, the soldiers, the seal, the power to make and unmake the future with a sigh. He is the one with the most to lose and the most to hide. He is the one who should have looked away. The message arrives like a trimmer beneath stone. 3 words that collapse a plan. I am pregnant. The quiet palace turns loud in his head. No one else hears it yet. He feels the walls tilt. Every step echoes. Secrets need shadows to survive, but shadows in palaces are just thin veils. Servlag servants sew them. Servants tear them. Sound travels. So does scent. So do suspicions. A king builds a fortress against foreign enemies and forgets the breach is in his own heart. Now the breach widens, and the desperate mind goes to work. He summons a soldier from the front. His name is Uriah. He carries the honor of a man who has lived through fire without letting it burn his integrity. Duty has creased his brow. Loyalty has shaped his posture. He is loyal to a fault, and that fault will become a door. The plan is simple, even. Bring the man home, send him to his house, let him enjoy comfort after hardship. Let time cover the timeline. Let the child pass as his. It's a neat ribbon tied around a dirty box. But neat plans crack when they meet men like Uriah. Uriah refuses the comfort. He sleeps on the stairs with the servants, near the palace doors, refusing to walk down to his own house, refusing to taste wine when his brothers taste dust. He says what the king should have felt. How can I enjoy warmth while the ark, the army, and the general lie in open fields? The words roll across the floor like iron balls. They won't stop. The king pours wine. Uriah drinks his fill but not his desire. He is drunk with duty and cannot be bribed by softness. The plan buckles. The king stares at a man who will not cooperate with deceit. A letter is written late at night. The wax is warmed. The seal is pressed. The instruction is precise. Put Uriah in the fiercest place. Then withdraw, and let the wall do what walls do to men standing too close. The chills are not from the night air. The letter goes back to the front in the hand of the condemned, because Uriah is trusted, and trust is a bitter cup when it is poisoned. The general gives a nod. The troops shuffle. The trumpets call. The weight of strategy hides a private crime. There is shouting, dust, splintering wood, the groan of bodies slammed against stone. One man falls and does not rise. The next note to the king is wrapped in formalities and numbers. There is mention of the wall, the archers, the inevitable losses. And then the line that matters, Uriah, your servant, is dead. A sophisticated conscience finds sophisticated excuses. War is a furnace. Men die. These things happen. It is the cost of holding a city. The king sends back the official comfort and the unofficial relief. The house sits silent. The widow weeps. The city moves on. The palace breathes again, or thinks it does. The marriage comes quickly, too quickly for the eyes that count days. And yet, people know. The king is magnanimous, they say, taking a fallen warrior's wife into his house. The optics are almost noble. Almost. And in that almost, another truth whispers. The thing displeased the Lord. Prophets do not wear crowns. They do not salute power. They walk into rooms with a different fire. Nathan arrives with a story, not a sword. A poor man. A little ewe lamb cherished like a daughter. A theft so cold it freezes the room. The king burns with anger. He roars about justice and repayment and what should be done to such a man. Nathan turns the story and holds it like a blade, and in 4 words, he undoes the king's robes. You are the man. The floor widens beneath David's feet. The windows shiver. The crown suddenly weighs too much. There is no veil now. There is only a mirror. Rewind a step and look at the world that made this moment possible. The united house pulsed with new strength. Victory songs had muscle. The capital shone brighter than it had a decade before. Borders had pushed out. Enemies had learned to retreat when they saw the crest of Judah's tiger on the hill. It felt like a golden age crowning a grounded people. And that is precisely when a man thinks he can coast. When he thinks the tide of earlier obedience will carry him against later temptations. Idleness is a spider. It spins while no one is looking. By the time desire walks in, the web is ready. Royal courts are theaters of danger and divinity. The laws are recited. The banners are raised. The sacrifices smoke on the altars. Everything says order and blessing. But behind the tapestries, people whisper. Courtiers jostle. Messages. Loyalty is as fragile as glass. The line between a holy king and a hungry king is thinner than silk. A hand that signs decrees for justice can sign a private order for death. The same seal that makes a covenant with a nation can break a covenant with a neighbor's house. A man's public strength cannot save him from his private weakness. And when public and private finally collide, they do not meet gently. Bathsheba's life turns beneath forces that never asked her permission. She is a witness and a survivor. She buries a husband who never betrayed his oath. She bears a child who will not live. She walks the cold floors of a palace that gives comfort and takes identity. It is tempting to turn her into a symbol, so we do not have to face the narrower truth, which is that power often writes over women's voices. She speaks where she can. She acts within the scripted corridor of a court that polices every gesture. In time, she becomes mother to an heir, but that future does not erase her past. Mothers know the cost of crowns. The judgment is pronounced. It is specific and heavy. The child of this union will die. The sword will not leave the house. The king who sent another to the wall will feel the wall within his own family. The words are not thunderclaps. They are quiet stones placed, 1-1, on the scale. The room tilts without a breeze. The king does not argue. Something in him is done with arguments. He will plead, but not debate. The child grows sick. The palace shrinks. Servants speak in whispers and read the king's face like a changing sky. He is on the floor, night after night, refusing bread, refusing comfort, choosing the roughness of stone over the softness of silk. He has written songs about lament, but this is not poetry. This is dirt and sweat and a silence that does not move. There is no harp. There is no choir. There is only breath, thin and slow, waiting for the next turn of the wheel. The chimes. The servants are afraid to speak. They have watched men lose their minds for less. They wait for a scream or a broken chair or a fury that needs a room to throw. The opposite happens. The king rises. Wash. He changes clothes. He goes to worship. He eats. This behavior scandalizes his household. It has scandalized readers for centuries. He tried when trying mattered, he says. He refused comfort when comfort might have been granted. Now the sentence is carried, and submission becomes the form of his love for the child. He will not drag grief like a theater across the days. He will carry it like a stone in the pocket, unseen, but always present. The kind of weight that reminds a man to walk carefully. The story's angle shifts. Bathsheba holds another child. The name is Solomon. Peace. Rest. A paradox of hope inside a house still shaking. A new beginning that does not erase the old wound. He will build and write and judge. He will inherit both brilliance and burden. The temple will rise on bedrock, and Israel will sing of wisdom and glory. But the cracks will not vanish. They will run beneath the surface like old river beds, dry and dangerous, waiting for rain. Nathan's words prove true. The sword chews its way through the house of David in a chain of betrayals that read like a tragedy staged in slow motion. One son hurts his sister. Another brother's rage spills. Absalom's hair glows like a crown in the sun, and his ambition burns like oil. He steals hearts at the city gates, charming, promising, lowering his head as if humility were a cloak he could wear and discard. Then he raises a banner. The city builds a tremor from the ground up. The king, older now, must leave the place he made central to his name. Barefoot, head covered, humbled. The river of consequences has finally reached its floodplain. A nation of tribes cannot stand steady when the first family reels. It is a script as old as kingship. Scandals start in chambers and end at the gates. Alliances loosen. The clever watch for openings. The cautious hedge bets. Fortress walls hold, but confidence cracks. The whistle of rumor travels faster than a rider. People pick sides. Some are pragmatic. Some are true. Some are afraid. The city learns again that politics is just morality scaled up. When a leader's private world is rotten, the public world begins to stink. What should a listener take from this ruin and this repair? First, that power without accountability is a furnace that burns everyone who tends it. Second, that desire is not defeated by success. Often, success makes desire bolder because it expects to be obeyed. Third, that any system that cannot say no to its leaders will eventually say no to its people. The story makes a promise and a threat. The promise is that repentance is real. The threat is that consequences are also real. We do not get to choose one without the other. That tension is not a flaw. It is the only honest way to tell this. Listen to the prayer that emerges from the wreckage. Not a public statement. Not damage control. A request as old as regret. Create in me a clean heart. Not repair the image. Not sweeten the spin. Make me clean. The king who wrote poems now begs for a surgeon. He asks for truth in the inward parts, not applause in the outward courts. He is done with the noise. He wants marrow changed. He wants to desire rightly again. He knows that mercy is not a right. It is a gift, and gifts cannot be demanded, only received. Now, step aside from the palace and stand with the listener today. Leadership is still stewardship. Titles are still tests. The modern office, the studio, the pulpit, the bank, the platform, each is a rooftop at dusk, each with its own kind of view. The story grips because it is not just about them then. It is about anyone who holds influence and thinks hunger will obey because the crowd once cheered. Hunger does not obey. It flatters. It whispers plausible lines. It asks for little at first, then comes back for more. The only defense that holds is a habit of no, a practiced refusal, a friend who can tell hard truths, a prophet who is allowed to enter the room. There is an ethical rhythm worth repeating. Desire is not the enemy. It is order. The king was not condemned for being human. He was condemned for folding his humanity into a script that harmed another and hid the harm behind ceremony and command. He loved wrongly, which is to say, he loved himself most. That misordered love became a fuse. The explosion did not happen all at once. It rolled through birthdays and feasts and treaties and births and funerals until, one day, everyone realized that the fire was never fully out. The damage kept smoldering. We live in an age skilled at exposure. Cameras see everything. Microphones are always near. Documents migrate. Secrets are a brittle currency. But exposure is not repentance. It is only an opportunity for it. This old story refuses to let us collapse those two. The king's turning point was not when his sin became a headline. It was when his heart agreed with the accusation. His confession opened the only door that leads out of the maze. Acceptance of blame, acceptance of consequence, acceptance of a mercy that does not rewrite history, but can redeem it. Return to Bathsheba. It is too easy to let her disappear behind the drama of men. She carries grief that does not make speeches. She must remake a life in the same place where her life was unmade. She learns to mother in a palace where trust is scarce and alliances change like weather. Do not miss her endurance. It is a quiet form of bravery. Later, she will advocate for her son's future with a firmness born of loss. She will learn how to speak and when, how to be patient without being passive. Her story reminds us that many who bear the cost of scandal are not the ones who caused it. Their faithfulness is the hidden architecture that holds the future in place. Think again of Uriah, the faithful man who did not bend. The story honors him without speeches. It honors him by letting his character interrupt the plot of a king. He teaches a principle that should sit like an axe at the root of every institution. Build systems that reward integrity at the bottom more than charisma at the top. When the accountable private refuses the immoral plan, the public leader's worst instincts have less room to move. If that had happened here, the child might have lived. A household might have stood. A city might have rested easier. There is a phrase that keeps returning like a drumbeat. This changed everything. It is a warning. It is also an invitation. That kind of sentence can belong to a night of failure. It can also belong to a morning of clarity. If a glance can ruin a legacy, another glance can save one. The glance that turns away from theft toward gratitude, from secrecy toward counsel, from pride toward prayer. Kings fall by inches long before they fall by headlines. They rise the same way, by small choices that stitch courage back into the soul. The scandal sits inside a larger pattern that ancient readers understood as prophecy, not as fortune-telling, but as a moral horizon. The idea is simple. Choices have echoes, and those echoes do not stop at the door. The echoes become climate. That climate becomes weather. Then everyone lives beneath the storm or the sun created by a leader's loves. When Nathan said the sword would not depart, he was not casting a spell. He was naming the weather system that betrayal would generate. We still name such systems today, only with polls and graphs and op-eds. The language changed. The power did not. Now let the camera widen. The past is not a museum if it keeps talking. The kingdom is not a myth if it keeps bleeding into the present. The story still ends the same way when it repeats. Secrecy followed by complications, followed by cover, followed by more desperate control, followed by a loss that no one planned and everyone feels. And then, if there is courage, a confession. If there is grace, a restoration that does not pretend nothing happened. A wiser leader, a humbler song, a rebuilt house that tells the truth about its own cracks. Some will ask, why focus on failure? Why not celebrate the victories only? Because a faith or a history that edits out its worst day is not strong. It is fragile, and the first strong wind will scatter it. The beauty of this old narrative is that it refuses flattery. It tells a story that could have been sanded smooth for the sake of propaganda, but it wasn't. That alone should deepen trust, not cheapen it. It means the record is willing to wound its heroes to tell the truth about the human heart. That kind of honesty can heal a nation. Watch how redemption actually works in the aftermath. It does not put the crown back on and say, let's forget. It teaches the crown to kneel. It teaches the hand that signed a death sentence to open, to give, to repair. It writes a psalm that doesn't fit on a poster. It starts to make justice practical again, measured, not dramatic, consistent, not theatrical. The king learns to listen. He learns to let others speak into his blind places. He keeps a prophet nearby. He hands power forward with less clutching. He plans succession carefully, and even then, the human element still interferes. Yet, the humility changes the tone of the room. There is an H at the center of all this, and the H is noble. It says, there must be a better way to be strong. Not brittle strength that needs to hide, but transparent strength that can be examined and still stand. That strength is stewardship. The crown is not a prize. It is a burden. The burden is not punishment. It is a calling. And a calling requires a community that knows when to cheer and when to challenge. This is why the figure of the prophet belongs beside the figure of the king, not behind him, not beneath him, but beside him. Someone to tell the story that pierces self-deception. Someone to say, you are the man, and mean it for rescue, not ruin. If this is striking too close to home, good. Stories like this are scalpels. They cut to heal. The goal is not to shame. It is to sober. To remind anyone with a platform that character is the platform. To remind anyone with followers that there is a better song than praise, and that song is accountability sung in harmony. To insist that mercy is for the guilty and that responsibility is still theirs. To say both are true without flinching. There is another thread worth pulling. The way a community responds to scandal shapes its future as much as the scandal itself. If a court chooses denial, it breeds cynicism. If a court chooses scapegoats, it breeds fear. If a court chooses truth, it breeds trust, even when the truth hurts. David's house chooses, painfully and imperfectly, to face it. The cost is high. Sons die. But something else survives. The covenant renewed in honesty. That is the seed of hope that will sprout again when the winter breaks. The narrative leaves images that won't let go. A crown askew on a stone floor. A broken scepter. A torn banner. A harp silent in a corner. A woman at a window, eyes unlocked on a horizon that won't answer her. A letter sealed in wax, warm and treacherous. A prophet's finger, not shaky, steady as a plumb line. A king face down on the earth, alone. A cradle that holds both promise and risk. A temple blueprint sketched with ambition and prayer. A city skyline at dusk, then and now, where rooftops still hold choices that no one will ever fully see. Right now, as we speak, there are rooms where a glance is turning into a plan. There are keyboards clicking orders that should never be sent. There are voices rehearsing excuses for meetings that should never happen. And there are also rooms where someone is picking up to call a friend who will tell them no. There are keyboards typing, sorry. There are prayers beginning with a sigh. There are leaders choosing counsel instead of secrecy, choosing to leave the roof and return to the field. The story is not finished, because the heart is not finished. If the episode troubled the ancient listeners, it will trouble modern ones, too. That is the point. To disturb the surface, to reach for the bedrock, to refuse to let us sit comfortable in admiration without wrestling with the real. If this king could fall, any can. If this king could be restored, anyone can. Hold both truths at once. Do not drop either. That tension will keep the soul alive, the house honest, the city safer. And when the music cues for the end, let the final notes be a question rather than a speech. What single choice today will shape a legacy tomorrow? Will it be a glance that turns into theft, or a glance that turns into wisdom? Will it be secrecy that builds a pressure that must explode, or confession that releases the weight before it crushes? You need to see this, not with the eyes only, but with conscience. Stay with this, because what comes next in this series follows a thread through other halls of power, other nights of decision, other mornings of reckoning. The faces change, the pattern remains. Power meets prophecy, and the heart, again, stands trial. Perhaps, again, finds mercy. If this spoke to something real, come back for the next chapter. There is more to unfold. Another rooftop, another throne room, another lamb in a parable that feels too close to home. Until, watch the rooftops in the life you can touch. Say no early. Tell the truth quickly. Invite a prophet's voice to live in the same house as your plans. This changed everything then. It can change everything now.